Hello, project people. You're listening to the Project Chatter podcast, your trusted source of project experts. I'm your host, Val Matthews, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dal Fung, and Martin Kuriston today.
Hello, Val. Hello, Martin. It is amazing to be at the end of season 3. Can you believe that? The
Can't believe it.
finale episode. Is that the right way? I don't know how to start. I
Yeah,
can't even speak. It's what, 9:30 p.m. On the weekend, and
yeah.
just loving chatting to you two fine folks. Martin, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dale. And yourself?
Oh, yeah, just like I say, I'm just so excited because season 3 in the bag, um, and really looking forward to season 4 as well. But before season 3 is done, I think Val, let's crack on with the last episode.
Exactly. Let's crack the whip. Yeah, and before we do, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, whatever that could be. And don't forget, we have a YouTube channel. So if you want to see our lovely faces, you can. Recorded forever online, YouTube. Check us out. And if you'd like to sponsor the podcast, check us out, projectchatterpodcast.com. We would love to hear from you. You can even drop us a message on Anchor. In this pod, we were supposed to be joined by Jason Schroeder to talk about tact time planning, what it is and how it improves project delivery. But unfortunately, much to our surprise, he was unavailable. But that doesn't matter. Don't worry, folks. We got you covered because we're going to do a flashback, a retrospect on season 3 and talk about some of our favorite bits and bobs, about some of our best guests and some of our most popular stats and some special mentions from each of us. So do stay with us. Dale, why don't we kick off with your first little memory?
My first memory, what, from when I was like a little baby?
No, season 3, my friend. I did contextualize it.
No, a bit of fun, bit of banter. Season 3 was amazing. I mean, I was looking through the list, and wow, we were so lucky to have every single guest that joined us was amazing.
Mm.
And I really struggled to think about which one did I particularly enjoy. And we probably have some of them on the same list. But, if you look down the list, we were fortunate to speak to the likes of Dr. David Hewlett.
Mhm.
Um, we had Martin Paver on, Dr. Alexian Nalowick, Dimitris Farmakis, Steve Moore with his inventions, Jonathan Norman, Kenneth
Mm.
Harris. Sorry, I'm just calling out some names. I'm probably going
Yeah,
to miss some out, but
do it. Do it.
wow, Walt Lipke, the inventor of Earned Schedule, amazing. Some real life experiences on Crossrail. That was one that got quite a few hits as well, Val.
Mm.
We had Anne Bamford on. What a privilege. Gary Wong and Hendrik Lawrence. Wow. And then most recently, we had Dr. Karen Thompson, Dave Corbin, and Dr. Nigel Williams. And then Michael Cicciotti on the last episode. So a range of folks there. I mean, just go back, folks, and look through season 3, and yeah, you can just feast your ears on what these experts have shared with us. But I think for me, looking back, I think the one that I probably enjoyed the most, I would say, was Kenneth Harris II for me.
Mm.
And Kenneth was just amazing. I mean, he works for NASA, right? And on really high profile projects. Yet, how humble was he sharing his career? How transparent and open was he about what they did, what they didn't do, where the areas where they struggled, and what they did to overcome those. I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, Val, it, it's it's one of those where I'll probably look back on season 3 and go, wow, like we were so privileged. That's my overriding feeling towards it. How about you?
Yeah, look, I'm the same. I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite when we kicked this off, even before season 1 when it was just the three of us, and Martin might not have been on the camera, but we were certainly talking about it. And now season 3, we've got all these great subject matter experts and passionate people. And what I realized is we've actually got a front seat, and I'm really enjoying the process of actually breaking down and being able to ask questions without having to read all that squabble. Because everyone knows you go online and you can Google anything, and problem I see is that is the problem. You can Google anything, and there's so much misinformation out there. But these guys have made a career out of the particular subjects that we pick them for, and they provide such clarity and insight that I think we basically are the beneficiaries of the podcast. So a shout out to all our guests actually, and we do appreciate their time and effort. And I was just going through my list as well. I'm a tech guy. I love data. I'm an early adopter. I've got all the gadgets. So for me, it was talking about M plan and Alice technologies, what machine learning and AI can do for us. Even some of the methodologies as well. Like I really got along with John Holman talking about risk, even though that could be a very dry subject, but
Mm.
because John loves it so much, he animates it. Uh, and even going into things that I don't necessarily always spend a lot of time on about like fusion skills with Anne Bamford and having our resident earned value guru Steve Wake on. He brings just a different angle to everything, and he's very passionate about his subject matter too. So just having a think about that. I think my biggest takeaway as well has been how do I then take what I've listened to and apply it where I work? And one of the nicest compliments I think, and shout out to Josh Glanville, he was one of the first guys that told me he takes his team as part of their learning and development through the podcast, and they kind of break down each episode. And I was really humbled by that, but I thought it was a really cool thing to do. And the more I actually speak to people who listen to the podcast, there's actually others that are doing this, and I think that's really really fantastic. And I wish I had this when I was learning or interested in the subject matter more. And I go back a lot actually and listen to our previous conversations. I'd like to shout out as well to Dr. Alexia.
Mm.
She's doing some fantastic stuff. Hashtag PM chat. But also just understanding how people are getting the message out there. The 4D construction guys. I don't think was that season 3 or season 2. I can't remember.
Season 2, but yeah,
Yeah,
they had a
they're
lasting impression,
fantastic.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they did, and what they're doing for the community, for the craft of 4D, getting it out there. That like they are the guys pushing that. I think we have to also mention Anil and the Project Controls Expo.
Mm.
Whilst they are all seeing and all knowing, they are trying to collaborate with various people and institutions and ourselves. So they're doing a great job getting the Project Controls name out there, and it is changing.
Yeah.
It's just what I find is even with this access, we always said pay it forward. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it is very slow, uh, as in the access and then people applying that and the maturity. I think I'm talking about the maturity of project controls and PMO and project management out there in terms of real tangible effects. I'd love to see that transaction where okay, then so knowledge is free now. It's all accessible. You're all knowing, yet you're still making the same mistakes and projects are failing. How's that? I want to see some correlation between project success and a free marketplace for knowledge. That we're getting there. I don't think, and this is just me rambling, but I don't think institutions have that hold on knowledge anymore like they used to, and everyone's trying to take knowledge working. Which is in fact their intellectual assets, but taking knowledge into their own hands and developing themselves. Courses are becoming free online. We're seeing that now, and that's exciting. That's a really really exciting bit. So podcast. So hopefully Project Chat is playing their bit in it. But what do you think, Martin Dale?
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that. I think over the last 3 seasons, we've seen some real diversity of subjects. In season 3 alone, we've had the real technical subjects like earn schedule. We've had some
Mm,
kind of softer skills like your critical thinking, organizational change, bit of responsible project management. And then the more general subjects like where the industry's going, like the project data analytics with Martin Paver. We were saying just offline how amazing that episode was, and how there's a real kind of trend in the industry towards project data analytics, and it's a growing market. I think also, what just touching on what you said there, I think in the future series we've seen this real amazing theory that's been discussed. I think the next step, and hopefully we can have it on future series, is where we've seen those skills actually applied on real life projects and seeing the tangible benefits that it's brought. You know, we're all cheerleaders for the theory on this. It's amazing,
Mm.
and we're starting to see some of the outputs in the wider industry. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more about the real life benefits that some of the subjects we've spoken about over the last few months are bringing to projects.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, Martin. And Val, you mentioned, Annual at the Project Controls Expo, and a lot of people do know Annual, and he has supported us, throughout, which has been amazing. But another support in the background has been Chirag Shah, from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Chirag is constantly promoting us and telling everyone, head to the Project Chatter podcast. So massive shout out to Chirag. But season 3,
Definitely.
actually, we've brought on another big supporter of the podcast in Steve Wake. And we support what Steve does as well, because every week, similar to the Project Chatter podcast, obviously we're a podcast, but he does, his live conversation clubs. And he's made that accessible to people. And he has some really, really amazing guests on there presenting ideas
Yeah.
as well. But Steve sent so many guests this season our way, and so a huge shout out to Steve as well and what he's trying to do. And he is one of those that you were talking about, is trying to make this information, this knowledge freely available by having these conversation clubs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I feel like you're right. I feel like there is definitely a movement, a trend towards, you know what, we don't want the structured learning, because I think it was Michael that mentioned it on the last podcast, where often companies, organizations will send their staff, their employees, to training in a classroom environment. They come back and a month later they've forgotten what they've learned, right?
Mm.
But if we can actively be involved in sharing of ideas and information, and people enjoy that and they take that away and apply that at work, then I think that is what makes the difference. And we have been getting that feedback from people. You've mentioned, people that actually dissect the podcast. But a lot of people I talk to offline as well have said, you know what, this episode really sparked that, or that episode, really made me think about this. And that is such amazing feedback. And so, yeah, what a privilege we are having, in being able to spread the news and share the love, so to speak. But it's an interesting take, because, as you say, we are just sitting here being just the first in line to absorb all of this amazing knowledge and experience. Well,
Mm.
and I I I don't think, well, personally for me, this will ever end, because that thirst for knowledge, that sharing of the knowledge, I think is something that's here to stay. And the
Yeah.
beauty about it is, we're not writing anything down scripted. You can hear all the ums that we put in because we're thinking while we're recording this.
Yeah.
There's no set bunch of questions. I mean, we do a bit of research, obviously, on the guests, just to understand their background, a little bit on the topic, but most of the topics are real life experiences that we experience from our different angles. You, Val, from your consultancy perspective, mine currently from a client perspective, but we've worked in various organizations, so we have that rounded perspective. And then
Mm.
Martin also adding his third perspective in as well. So I think the listeners are really getting a lot from it, from the feedback we are getting. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I am looking forward to the next season. Well, but let's dissect one or two or three or four or five, however many
Let's
we
do
want
it.
to, episodes. So
Yeah.
back to you, Val. If you had to pick one to dissect, which one
Oh.
would you dissect in season 3? Come on, I'm putting you on the spot now. You put me on the spot.
Well, look, I think they're all really good, and I struggle, but I would say again back to my technical perspective. I see a massive application, and I guess a responsibility in this podcast to unravel gems, to find things that resonate not just with us but with the audience. And I think a lot of the times we get frustrated with the fact that we have all this amazing capability in people, process, and tools, yet it's not being harnessed. It's a bit like having free energy just floating around and not really applying it to anything. We're still paying dearly on projects for doing things so ordinarily, and particularly on mega projects. I'm still blown away by the number of big projects that are so stuck in their mode of a 2 by 2 reporting period that presents no real data or information, that provides no meaning and provides no clarity for the future. And it's like, well, how do we get out of this cycle? It's like this habitual behavior. It's kind of like an addiction. We just can't seem to put down and stop and take a step back. And I know we've done this. I don't think I think Dale, you're the first person to tell me to do that. When we first started working together, is take a step back. So looking at in answering your question, I think taking a step back is season 3. I think the two that stand out to me is probably Martin Paver and Demetrius. What's his last name? Finakis. Did I get that right?
Marcus, yeah.
You can never get the
You
surnames
know,
right.
you got to
You
get the
can never get
surnames
any
right.
names right, Val.
But that's part of my charm. Is that God damn it, have phonetic spelling in these bloody scripts. No, that's joking.
I think it
But
was Joe Zobke that you practiced like
Zobke.
5
Isn't it Zobke?
times. Or Zobke.
Zobke, what's his name?
Joe.
But I love
Joe,
them all.
Joe.
I love these guys. Yeah, I think if I screw your name up, it's a compliment, right? Just for anyone listening. So I really liked the Alice technology idea that I really want to tap into making projects better, and I do see people like Steve Wake and Martin Paver who are kind of crusaders. I love, so back to Steve Wake just real quick. His title for his latest series, Infodemic. I loved it. That's so good. He's doing such a good job. Steve, keep going. And and the work that Martin's doing in the data analytics community, particularly in the UK, fantastic. Right? The project hackathons. If you haven't seen them, check it out. That the idea that we could start sharing data is the start of something definitely worth protecting. Becoming data custodians is so important. So I think those two guys really stood out for me. The takeaways is anyone can start a community and anyone can shape the industry. I've realized that, even with this simple podcast arrangement, we're shaping minds and getting people interested in the subject matter again, which I think's really important. But, it's not like we came from some, you know, 30 years experience, Dale and Martin, with, accolades all across the wall. I have a few, but not a lot, right? And the idea was that, we're idiots. And
Yeah.
we're not sure exactly what's right and what's wrong, and we want to test that with people who do know what they're talking about. And I think that litmus test, that we're kind of the first responders, we're the first ones to ask the silly questions that maybe no one has asked, maybe in a public forum before. And I go back to as well the fact that if you've listened to any other project podcast or project relevant podcast, they're heavily scripted. And the feedback I get, and maybe Martin can comment because he's done a few over the last couple of weeks, but very scripted, and we're forgetting the humanizing element. Like, have fun. Like, where is it in the PMP handbook or the PMBOK or the Prince 2 to say, thou shalt not have fun, thou shalt not laugh in the classroom, thou shalt not make fun of themselves? Like, you've got to have some humility when you come to project management. I actually think it helps keep your sanity. If you're working under pressure and you are struggling, if you can have a laugh with your co-workers and your manager and go, right, okay, this is a stupid thing, let's work together. Like, I think that builds camaraderie. I think it builds culture and trust. And isn't that 90% of what we talk about? I know even with the technical ones, which is I'm going to finish and hand over to you guys. Even with the season 3, we talked about really, really technical things, but we still ended up talking about people and behaviors and culture and leadership. And I was like, that's great. Because the two fundamental fascinations I have about project management, that's why I'm still here, I guess, is that the business or the people psychology part and how people actually interact. I really love engaging stakeholders, and the data science and kind of where data will take us in the future. And I think those two things really, really, they get me out of bed in the morning because it is well, I did start at 5:30 this morning for this podcast, but like you said, Dale, I don't think it's going to stop. My quest, my thirst is not quenched for project disciplines. So again, if you want to be a guest on Project Chatter, not broadcasting, but I'd love to hear from anyone who's got a unique perspective and wants to share it publicly. But Dale, what are your two? I'm going to pick on you now. What
Well, I
is you've had
mentioned,
some time to think about it? Come on.
yeah, I mentioned NASA projects with Kenneth Harris. So that's episode
Mm,
61 for those who are intrigued. The other one that you talk about, and I think you're right, the two main trends that have come out of, I think, the conversations we've had on the podcast are data analytics, data science, machine learning, so all the technical
mm,
side of things, and how to use data to, create more certainty and provide better, meaningful information for decision making. So data. But the other big one was around leadership culture, behaviors, etc. And in that sense, episode 53 with Amal and IJ around what equality,
mm.
diversity, and inclusion in
Yeah.
project leadership really means, that one really stuck out for me as well. And a huge shout out to Amal and IJ, because they are also trailblazing in that space. And
Agree.
the overriding, thought that came out of that, or message, was it's not about skin color, age, sex, religion, race, but if you simply just think about having diversity of thought in your team, in your organization, on your project, just think about that, nothing else. The rest will take care of itself. What a powerful message, right? Forget
Hmm.
about all this debate around, are they the right age? Do they have the right experience? Do they have the right degrees? Do they have the right look, feel, all that kind of a thing? Do they say the right things? Diversity of thought. Do we have that diversity of thought to cover all of our bases to ensure that projects are delivered correctly? We've just seen in the news horrific incidents coming out of Miami, I think it was,
Mm,
right? That was a
Yep.
construction project back in the 80s. Now we've come a long way since then, but diversity of thought surely would have covered a lot of those risks potentially that have manifested, a few decades later.
mm,
Um, so it might seem like a really sort of softy subject, and how does that really contribute to project delivery? But if you have diversity of thought, you cover all of your bases. And I guess the other one, just looking back, and Steve Wake often speaks about this, is about benefits and how we don't relate project delivery. We often just measure it in the iron triangle of cost, schedule, and scope. And that doesn't often relate to benefits management. And how do we know, along the life cycle of a project, when you won't actually reap the benefits? So I actually think, looking forward to season 4, we need to get some sponsors on the podcast as well. So what is your
mm.
role, Mr. Sponsor or Mrs. Sponsor, on the project? And how do
Project
you
sponsors.
measure
Yeah.
project sponsors? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some amazing sponsors of the actual podcast. That's cool and that's great, and we'll give a shout out to them as well. But actual project sponsors, and what is your role? Because a lot of people hear about project sponsors, but do they actually really know what they do and how they measure their success? Because that is beyond the delivery of a project. So yeah, I'd probably say, I mean, I know that's a huge ramble and it was unscripted, as we've said. But yeah, probably episode 53, also one of the top ones for me, with Amal and IJ. Martin, come
Yeah.
on, you've been listening to us talking about a crap
Yeah. Come
for
on,
the
Hunt.
past few minutes. Come on, what are your top 2, top 3?
No, it's been great to reminisce about all these episodes and over the last 6 months now. We started on the first episode was 8th of January. Before I move on to my favorite episode, we're talking about the diversity of guests and opinions. And one of the things that we're really starting to see is that we're building our own networks, and we have all the guests of the podcast have been invited to this LinkedIn VIP group, and it's actually been amazing to see people boosting their network, speaking to each other, making connections with each other, and using and kind of using us as a bit of a conduit to speak and try and hopefully help the industry. I was reminded of one of the better episodes in the series where we spoke to a friend of the podcast, Michael Lepage, and Nick St. John. So about how we can integrate some risk technology that Innate are creating into more established planning software such as Primavera. And I just was reminded how they actually ended up speaking after the show had finished, and just to talk about how they can help each other. And I felt that was amazing for two guests who had never spoken to each other before, two quite different technologies, two different backgrounds, and really seeing those connections with each other. I felt that was one of the real successes of the podcast in this series.
Yeah.
We are able to connect people. We're not these super connectors like Steve Wake who knows everyone, but just seeing little instances like that was really pleasing. I think my favorite episode was episode 57, where we spoke to Alex James around the advanced resource theorem. I'll be completely honest and say I didn't have high hopes for this one before. I know resourcing can be one of the more overlooked facets of project controls. It's not, sometimes it's seen as the most simple, or it's probably the one that's the most emotive and causes us more headaches than some of the more technical ones. But it was just listening to him, it was so fascinating how these three topics: demand, capacity, allocation, think of it as just need, have, and use. Simple things like that, just get those three things plotted on a chart and it will really start to benefit your project and your business. And then he came up with his theory that he was working on towards the end of the podcast around how ability times efficiency times intensity equals 1. And still percolating a little bit in my head, but it's fascinating. So yeah, again, I'd agree with Dale about NASA projects. I think that the three of us are all taken in by how amazing his background is, and we're all excited to hear about NASA because it's something where kids growing up, even outside of America, they all want to work for NASA when you're 6, 7, 8 years old. So seeing someone who has been through that journey and a real high achiever was amazing as well. And he was very transparent. Obviously, there was project confidentiality, things that he couldn't disclose, but I felt his journey, the processes, the types of processes, again, probably going back to that, that he has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. The real focus on safety and risk management, probably something we don't, slightly overlooked on some of the construction projects we've worked on at times, and just seeing that different perspective was amazing. So yeah, those were the main ones for me. So,
yeah. No, they're awesome. And NASA still has this kind of fantastic, not nostalgia, but like this mystery about it, and everyone's gravitated around kind of what they're doing and where they're going, and they kind of always were looking forward, and they're obviously a very reputable company to work for, and everybody knows them, right? They've been around for so long.
I'm not sure if this one made the YouTube, but you could see how excited we were during the episode, like how engaged we were. Our faces were amazing. I remember on the Zoom. Not sure if it made it to YouTube, but it's
still trying to get Alyssa Carson. So if she's listening, or maybe I'll poke her on LinkedIn. But we'd like to still listen to Alyssa Carson. She was another planned, I guess. We'll try and get her in season 4, maybe Dale. She's very ambitious as well, Martin. Wants to be the first kind of woman astronaut, or just astronaut in general, on Mars, which I thought was incredibly aspirational and inspiring too for others that were listening. And she does a lot of talks. But just going back, I think as well, I'd just like to pivot a bit and talk about what season 3 did, because for a long time, because you guys are based in the UK and I'm based in Australia, that was our big market, and now we're our listenership. And we know there's projects happening outside of those two countries. And we were really keen to kind of talk about other areas and other projects in other countries. And Kenneth, from the US was fantastic. We also had Steve Moore, who, again, very innovative type, I think he was in Alabama, wasn't he? Somewhere there. Yeah, it's just across the pond. I mean, I loved just listening to his accent, but also talking about innovations that he was doing. And, that That's really cool. So, in the last episode or last season, sorry, we've had a huge uptake. And I'd say the big top three countries now, or four countries, is the United Kingdom, United States, Australia, and Canada. And we thank all the listeners and guests that we've had out there, particularly the United States, who really grabbed onto season three and have made it a whole much more fun and unlocked a whole bunch of other guests as well. So, like Steve Wake, Dale, people in the US are now saying, "Well, have you spoken to this person? Have you spoken to this person?" And it's really interesting because of COVID that's happening kind of all in around us, right? It's this, you know, well, it seems like a never-ending cycle of isolation and lockdowns, and very stressful for people. We're still connecting, and there's still a lot of positivity and love out there, and people are still passionate about their subject matter. This is, I guess, for us as well, Dale. This is a bit of a coping mechanism to keep each other motivated and talking about things that we like doing, as opposed to listening to things that we don't like. And I just think it's been a really, really humble and fun ride. How about yourself,
Yeah.
Dale?
No, I agree. You talk about creating networks, Martin. Val, you alluded to, how we also reaching out to new markets, I guess, and people are engaging and asking us, to speak to others, and that's amazing. It reminded me actually of Jonathan Norman, episode 60, talking about, he's from the Major Projects Association, he's the knowledge manager there, and talking about how to take advantage of project management communities of practice. And I, the overriding message, I guess, from there is that, you know what, you can have a community of practice anywhere. You don't have to go and look for one. You don't have to go find one. Go back and listen to that. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, but huge shout out to Jonathan as well, because he's sent a whole bunch of guests our way for season 4. So that's going to
Yeah, I
be
did.
amazing as well. But you touch on stats a little bit there. And let's, I guess, give a few more stats, Val, while we're on the stats. So early on, and this comes from our Anchor stats page. So I guess it's hugely dependent on what information people are willing to share as well. But early on, we had, I think it was something like 75 to 80% were female listeners. I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I think it was you, Val, that said, you must have a really sexy voice. That's why female listeners are listening to us.
I
And
didn't say
I
that.
went, yes, Val, that's probably the reason.
Hit the accent, maybe. Maybe it's the accent.
Maybe the accent. But
Yeah.
actually, jokes aside, the stats after a while have settled, and we've got 70% male, 28% female. There's 2% not specified. Um, and I wonder if that is a reflection on the industry of,
Mm.
representation of who is in the industry as professions as well. And if it is, that's quite alarming. Coming back to that whole diversity of thought. So, yeah, Martin, I wonder what's your take on that as well. Because it's an interesting stat. You love a stat. You love to cut it apart, look at it from various angles. What's your take?
Yeah, I think I was really fascinated about just the range of countries where people are listening to, and the thing you mentioned about gender. It was quite interesting. I had the perception it would be the other way around. I think on the diversity and equality episode, we spoke about how many management positions are still typically male dominated, how many industries like construction are, again, very, very male dominated, particularly on site, where Amal had experience of that firsthand, and the challenges that she encountered therein. Um, yeah, it's something that needs to be worked on in the industry. We need to keep promoting diversity. We need to keep promoting and challenging ourselves. Do we really have the diversity of thought in our own teams, where we have a direct influence over um, over staff? How can we help this? How can we influence this? So yeah,
Well, I
not
think we
sure I can
really
particularly have much intelligence to this.
no. I mean, look, it's a very high level stat, and we don't have the data behind that. you know. But
Mm.
if we then combine that with age groups, so what we've got is 45 to 59 years old, 14%. And then our two biggest towers, 35 to 44-year-olds at 32%, and 28 to 34-year-olds at 37%. Those are the two biggest age demographic. And then it jumps down to 15% is 23 to 27-year-olds. And then at 1%, 18 to 22. Now, we've often spoken that we are struggling with the pipeline of professionals coming in or people coming into the profession. And if there's one thing, listeners, that you can do is maybe, pick someone a bit younger, an episode that you think that would really resonate with them, and so have a listen to that and see if that interests you. Maybe the one with Steve Moore about cool innovations in planning, and how to think differently outside the box. Maybe that one resonates with you. But and if there isn't anything you think that resonates with young people, let us know. You
Mm.
know, give us a topic, give us a person that you think would be fantastic. I mean, I know we're looking at season 3, Val, but at the end of season 2, Vin Jiang, how amazing was Vin on
Yeah, he's
communication
so good.
skills, right?
He's so good. Yep.
And that you don't have to be in projects to appreciate Vin. But we got people like that from outside of the industry to provide us with a skill that could really help in project management as well. So that's some of the age demographics. Um, I'm going to give you a really obscure question, Val. What is the most peculiar country you think is on our geographic location? I mean, there's quite a few if you think about it. There's everything from Qatar, Hong Kong, Netherlands, Taiwan,
Oh.
India, France, Turkey, Ireland, Saudi Arabia, Cyprus, Norway, New Zealand. New Zealand? Do they have internet in New Zealand? I'm just kidding.
They've actually got fiber to the premise
Nice,
for
nice.
every single house. Yeah, they've got fantastic fiber.
No, I was just kidding about New Zealand, the whole rugby banter with South
I know, I
Africa.
know. No, they're
Spain,
fantastic. Look,
Philippines,
yeah,
Kazakhstan, huge shout out to Kazakhstan, Russia, Israel, Serbia, Switzerland, Japan, Mexico, Zimbabwe. We have listeners in Zimbabwe, Ghana, Germany, Argentina. Wow, the list goes on and on. But
yeah.
yeah, what's the most peculiar one for you, Val?
Honestly, probably the non-English. Where English isn't the first language. I think something I think would be beneficial in the future is like how do we translate these podcasts so that other countries can also benefit. But they are interesting. I think just because the biases that I have. I think Chile was interesting
I
because
was about to
my
say,
wife's
is
Chile.
that
Yeah.
family of
Classic,
yours
yeah.
that listen to it?
Well, I don't think they do. But my sister-in-law, she's in project, or I think they call it product management. And I think she's listened to a few. But yeah, it's very interesting that Chile is listening. So yeah, gracias. If anyone in Chile is listening, thank you very much. We would try to get some Spanish in there somewhere. I think in season 4, not giving anything away, one of our topics may include something Spanish related. I don't want to give away the title, but I think we do have something in there.
We do, we
Might be a
do.
Spanish project or something. But
Perhaps.
yeah, I think look, that's the most obscure one, I think. But in terms of just spread as well, we've seen from season 3 that there's more people listening, which is great. And I think that's actually a testament to the fact that Spotify and other platforms are really heavily investing in podcasts. And I don't want to shout out to Spotify because they're making enough, but giving us a place, a home, a way to distribute this out really easily every week makes our jobs a lot easier. As I said, probably special mention to everybody, including our marketing team and Martin and Udale behind the scenes. There is a lot of
And you,
work.
Val.
Well, I just turn up, but I think there is that there is a lot of effort, managing comments and promotions and videos, and I think we've actually been humbled by a few few comments and feedback from our guests, but I really appreciate the fact that we're continuing this, and it's going to be on. And when we talk about this, don't we, Dale? We say, in 10 years from now, imagine the library and the archive we would have on the project management discipline. And I think that's worth building. That library to me seems like a really interesting goal, and it's very, very engaging because every topic is different. And as long as we can keep that up and we can keep looking at each other, and you don't get sick of me, Dale and Martin, I think it'd be a really great legacy to leave as well for others to maybe pick up. Maybe we decide at the end, Dale, we're too old, and we hand over to some younger people, and that it continues on in some form. Maybe podcasts aren't the new. Maybe there's something else that comes out. This is what I'm interested in. So maybe there's something else that's coming out. But if you've got ideas about mediums and platforms as well, interact with us. We're not isolated. There's no firewall with Dale, myself, and Martin. We love to hear. Our LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in touch with us. We're very responsive there. A lot of the time, people think it's our marketing team responding. Sometimes it's just us. We love to be interactive with the fans and followers and subscribers. So do check us out there and engage. There's a few other platforms, Dale. I don't know if you want us to give it away today, but there is some really cool platforms coming out in I would call the idea sharing marketplace. That could be very beneficial for the types of topics that we're trying to discuss and the reach that we're trying to have with our audience.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is interesting, and yeah, it's the audio space, I guess, and it is exciting. Yeah, we can talk about it. It's in the news. It's open, so Facebook is looking to get into podcasts,
I know,
which is
Well,
huge.
that was a shocker.
I
I didn't see
know.
that coming. Who saw that coming? I didn't see that coming. I should have,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I didn't. They're going against Spotify, which is, I mean, this is more political now, but how interesting is that? That's cool. Bit of a duke it out.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. But I just want to touch on something that we've often been asked or thought about and discussed around categorizing our podcast and having them sectioned, off to say, well, season 4 is going to be all about Australian projects, or season 5 is going to be all about women in engineering and projects, or whatever the case may be. And the reason we don't do that is because we like the unstructured nature. But what we are looking at doing is going back and putting specific episodes into categories for those of you that want to sort of get a bit more of a sort of focused view on, okay, let's listen to the construction playlist or the risk playlist, or whatever the case may be. So that's I just wanted to put that out there because we do get asked that one quite a bit. Can you categorize? Can you have, 5 episodes where it just talks about the basics, blah, 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 blah. And it's really difficult, but we will try and do that for the listeners as well, because we are here, as we said, from day one to serve. This is everyone knows that listens, to the podcast. This is not our day jobs, but this is a passion of ours that, we started to share our knowledge and experiences and our networks, insights for those at large. And the other thing you mentioned, Val, is that it will carry on for time to come. And the reason I know it will is because you mentioned it. We are dumbasses. We don't know what we're talking about. So there's a lot of growth space there for us. So we're figuring out all of this as we go, right?
Yeah.
So it's a hell of a steep learning curve, and it goes on for many miles and many kilometers. So we'll bump our heads many more times, but we'll continue to evolve and deliver. But what I think the most important thing is we need that feedback, right, from the listeners. If you're not getting what you want, let us know, and we'll try and get that for you. We'll also look, we had an amazing debate in season 2. We didn't have one in season 3, but we're looking at that again in season 4. And maybe that's a good spot to dip our toe in the water into season 4, Val. What do you reckon?
Definitely. I feel like there isn't many platforms that allow open, unscripted discourse to happen, where there's a level of respect. Obviously, we don't want to have arguments, but we want people to present the case. The twos and fours, the pros and cons, the various opportunities. Like we kind of do it in our tennis sessions. I don't know if anyone picks that up and sees that. Originally, it was on our YouTube channel. Now we just let it all out. But we do ask the question, technology or people. And that seems to be a rubbing point for a lot of project people, that it has to be one or the other, and it's not binary in that sense that it's certainly not a dichotomy. I think actually one's an enabler of the other, and we've seen this through COVID, that the fact that if you harness technology, you become a better people person, and you can spend more time with people, and you can alleviate the stresses from people, and people are more responsive, and cultures are more productive, and that has a knock-on effect to actually letting technology do the hard stuff so that you can focus on fun stuff. And I actually think people things are fun. But I think the legacy is great. I do find sometimes that we, I guess from our perspective or my perspective, um, we don't always give that diverse of flavor, and I think we need to figure out a way. And I'm talking to the listeners as well, to mechanize feedback. Maybe it's through Twitter. I don't know. I'm not very good with these handles. I try, but tell us what you want. You know, what you really, really want. That's kind of what we
Are you gonna sing?
going to start. Any kick. No, no. But we need something that allows you to really. And if you're not happy, oh man, that last podcast was terrible. That last guest really didn't speak to me. It's not going to be for everybody. Every topic's going to be different. I know when I listen to podcasts, particular guests, I don't, or particular podcast hosts, I don't like every single one of them. But I would love to know more. And I think, before Martin became part of the crew, he was part of the fan club, and before that, he was an employee. So we'd love to hear from Martin on what should we do more. You're representing the people now, Martin, so be careful. But who should we be targeting? What would you like to see more on the podcast?
Actually, Val, you know what he's really good at? Tell us what
Tell
we're
me.
crap at, Martin.
Oh, where do I start?
Color
No, I
charts.
think speaking to I was speaking to a few people about this, and they um, a lot of what they're saying is about it's helped with some of their understanding of project controls. I think going back to what I said at the start, really seeing some of these concepts put into real life projects. I think we've made a good stab in season 3 on it, but really seeing where some of these real advanced theories and concepts have been brought into projects, and where the successes have been and failures. Not all of these things are going to be roaring successes. The things I would be particularly interested in is where did we bring it in? Some bits went right, some bits went wrong. Why did it go wrong? And then how did we change it along the way to get to the right result? So things like that, just applied learning. I think that's one of the key themes when I speak to people about this. They're very keen on that. I think the one thing that people always say is they're particularly impressed with the passion of the people, of the guests. Each of them is really passionate about their own subject. So whilst you can have some quite good debates with them, they may not agree with some of the things that we're challenging them on, but you can never doubt their passion. I think that really speaks through in sort of attracting some new listeners to the podcast. So I note what you said about ages there as well. Um, it is a challenge to engage some people in the podcast. We understand the majority of our listeners are probably going to be people who work in project management or project management office based tasks. So the challenge for us is, how do we grow our listenership in that kind of niche, and then how do we attract some people who are looking to get into project management, looking to get into project controls type roles, and how can we use some of our guests' experiences to really engage them into this market. Most people fall into a project management or project management office role. We've said that many times I don't think too many people at school or university saying, when I grow up, I want to be a project controller. But it just happens, and then people learn that, they really like it, or project management, that could be their real passion in life, even though they had an engineering background or a construction based background. So the challenge for us is listening to the listener feedback, making sure we understand it, and how can we react and bring on the right guests to give the people what they want effectively.
Wise words as usual, Martin. Yeah, and I hear your point. I mean, I had someone ask in the family, young girl. She's an engineer. She's like, Val, I want to get into project management. What podcast do you recommend? What episode? I was like, oh, geez, so many, right? We went through a few of them today. But if you were starting out in project management, where would you start? And we need to. I think what we were doing is we're talking about season 4, but we haven't mentioned some of the website development. So we're going to change our website a little bit, and we would love to bring Amal and IJ from an inclusivity and diversity perspective. We'd love to have a bit more detail and depth about some of the show notes and what you can take away from each podcast. I think, really breaking that down, and then having some categories like Dale mentioned briefly before, where we're talking to an entrant or a graduate, someone who's just starting their career, and you've got this kind of spectrum over the life cycle, and people might want to know about the early, the middle, and the late ends of projects because they all have different requirements and challenges. And so I think maybe categorizing in a way that you can search and filter and maybe even be notified on particular subject matter is one of our goals for season 4. So I'm really excited to release that, but I don't want to give too much away, obviously, because I want you to be interested. And I love the fact that the passion of our guests is coming through from your feedback, Martin, to the people that you've spoken to. Again, it doesn't have to be a boring subject. And one of the things Dale and I are looking for is guests that really care about what they're doing. And it always comes through, whether they like it or not. You can tell when Dale and I are excited because our tonality changes and we lean forward and we're very, very interested in how things work. We get really into the geek speak, as we call it, or the rabbit hole sometimes. But that for me is really exciting that we get guests in that have that level of ambition and attitude and authenticity as well. I think you'll find we rarely have guests come on that are pushing an agenda, that are working on behalf of a major organization. We kind of give them a bit of a blanket statement and say, look, but obviously if you're really passionate about your subject matter, people will seek you out. Talk about what you're interested in, and that frame, I think, allows us to elicit really interesting conversations. And over a few minutes, you realize like some of these guests we only meet the day that we record, right, Dale?
Yeah.
And so there's no preemptive kind of understanding of who they are as a person, what their prejudices are, what their biases are. It just kind of comes out in a natural conversation. We seem to be able to connect online really quickly. And I don't find it that quick when I'm talking to project people on Teams or Skype or a Zoom, but I do in the podcast environment. Everyone seems to let the defenses down and they get real comfortable, and you can ask kind of a bit more vulnerable questions. And I think that's really, really, really great. We had Warren on, and his episode was really, really touching. And we've had a few people on who've really let us in to their lives, and that to me is really powerful too. So if you haven't listened to a few of those, I would suggest going back through the season 3 catalog and checking some of those out with some really humble and empathetic points of view. Some guys are really struggling out there, and I think some of these podcasts would probably resonate with you. It's not an easy subject matter. It's not an easy craft. It's certainly not the easiest job out there. And I know a lot of people do struggle with just inspiration and support. So I just wanted to let you know that there is a Project Chat Up community, and we're all out there to look after each other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fully appreciate what you're saying. So I think the ones you were referring to, we had Andrew Wickland, episode 69.
Yeah.
He talked about his struggles, and Warren as well, episode 62. So yeah, folks, go back and have a listen to that. But Belle, you mentioned, some of the changes. I just want to talk about our charity drive as well, paid forward as well. So thank you to everyone that has supported that. We're gonna go minimalistic, and we're gonna reduce the amount of items you can buy, and some new designs as well. So I think we've aimed at probably just doing a t-shirt, a cap, or a hoodie.
Yeah.
And looking at making that accessible to everyone. So Val's got his hoodie on now, but we'll look at some new designs as well. And the more we can, that's just our way to pay it forward. All those proceeds from that merchandise shop go to our charities. We don't hold any profits back on that. And if you don't want to buy anything, you can make a straight donation as well. That's fine too. but a huge part of that is, us also supporting those, young adults or children that need fair education opportunities, just fair opportunities in life as well sometimes. So, the charities we've selected are doing some amazing work around the world with underprivileged children. So please do support us if you're in a fortunate position to be able to do that. But I guess, Val, we also need to give a special shout out to our sponsors this past season. I mean, we've had
Yes,
two that
definitely.
have been with us from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
JustDo.com. Steve Gurvitz. Stephen,
Steve,
thank you so much for your support. It's been
thank you, man.
amazing.
Yeah,
Your faith from the beginning. I think Steve discovered us and went, "Hey, I like what
he
you're
did.
doing." I think we were only like a few
Yeah.
episodes deep, and he was like, "You guys are gonna grow your listenership." And I think that at that stage we only had like the most downloads we had was maybe like 25 or something on an episode. It's like, yeah, you guys are
Cool.
gonna go. You're gonna get more downloads. Like, really? He had a faith in us that we didn't have in ourselves in the beginning, and thanks to Stephen for that. And then Mr. Lepage, Michael Lepage, Plan Academy. Um, we had Michael on in season 1, and we were blown away that, ooh, here's this guy that, is famous for training up most of the world on how to do Primavera
Mm.
on YouTube. And he's agreed to join us on our podcast when no one really knew or heard about us. And after that, he was
Exactly.
like, I like what you're doing. I want to sponsor it. So, thanks to both of those, but then also Innate, who's joined us most recently, Val. They've been huge supporters of what we're doing as well. And it's been amazing to have them on on the sponsors list as well. And, if you'd like to sponsor us, if you like what we're doing, absolutely get in and get in touch with us. But Val, did you want to say anything to our sponsors as well?
Of course, of course. I mean, Steve. I mean, he feels like part of the furniture. He's been around for so long, so we certainly like Just Do and what they're doing as well. I mean, they're rapidly transforming their project management software, and it's more than that. I think they're very entrepreneurial, and that's what we need in this space in projects. And we're seeing a lot of that, and I just can't wait. I love disruptions, so seeing these software companies get in and go at it with head to head with some of these other bigger organizations like the Oracles is great. It's exciting. Let's see what you can do. I mean, competition in a market can only benefit the client or the consumer more, right? The end user, which is us. So the more competition we have in project management in terms of software and development and tools and these capabilities, these functions and features, the better. Uh, Michael Lepage, not only does he have a great attitude and has supported us for so long, but he's just a fun, charismatic guy, and really he's opened up his network as well. And he does have just a lot of passion around projects that came out, and we kind of formed a really strong bond with him as well. So we're very humbled actually to have him continue his sponsorship with us. And then of recent, Innate are really pushing boundaries, and Dan Patterson has been a really big supporter, and he's a very influential guy in the community. And I think having these guys on only excites us more, only makes us want to be um, kind of better providers of information to our communities, and they help us do that. So I really do appreciate all our sponsors, and I think that going forward as well, that we can collaborate, and these debates are great. If we can get some of these guys on, they will debate. I think we had Michael Lepage in our last debate. Was it season 1, season 2? And
Yeah, one of those. I don't know.
it was
Last year.
it was great.
Last
That
year.
it was a bit of a challenge, a bit of an experiment to have so many people on the same panel. If you haven't seen that episode or listened to that episode, check it out. It's not only is it difficult to or challenging to manage that many personalities, but also to manage the context and the discussion. So it's really good. I think the more of them we have, the better. And if our sponsors want to get involved, I mean, how often do you have sponsors who want to debate projects with others? Um, I love those. Those versus battles are great. Maybe we
Yeah.
should do in the future. I would love to hear a battle of the big titans. The Oracles versus the Deltex, or something like that. Throw Innate in there as well. Why not? I mean, it's not about who has the best software. It's about um, discovery.
Yeah. I
No one
agree.
has the best of anything. I refuse. Nothing's perfect. And every project, as you say, Dale, almost every other episode, is an unique endeavor. If you haven't heard Dale say that, he does say it a lot.
But it
Because
is.
you're reminding you're reminding people that there's no perfect fit. There's no Cinderella slipper for this project management stuff. But we can all help each other by becoming more informed and becoming knowledge workers.
Yeah.
So
So
Martin,
episode 30, Val, was the debate, season 2.
episode
Um,
30.
Yeah, for
It
those
seems
that
so
are
long ago.
interested. Yeah.
It seems like ages ago.
It does. It does. It was ages ago. It was ages ago. But as we head towards the end of this particular episode and close out season 3, Martin, are you going to throw a defend the indefensible at us?
Why not? Old time's sake. Okay. Let's start with Dale. Okay.
Get him.
So, Dale, you have 30 seconds to defend the following statement. Having listened to Kenny Harris's episode, I have absolutely no aspiration to ever work at NASA. Discuss.
Well, yeah, why would you want to work at NASA? I mean, it's all pie in the sky stuff. They don't know what they're doing because the scope's not defined. It's all exploration. It's all over the show, and frankly, I just don't think I've got the skill set to work at NASA. Is that 30 seconds?
Yeah, very good.
You didn't mention UFOs. I thought you were going to go, what about the UFO cover up
What
and the
about
moon
the
landing?
UFO? Yeah, no, sorry. I'd love to work at NASA, FYI. That'd be
Yeah.
amazing. Hey, how cool
Yeah.
would that be?
Recruiters, listen to this.
Exactly. Thanks,
Exactly.
Martin.
Val, so your statement to defend. From what I've heard on season 3, we really need to embrace Microsoft Excel as the key tool to deliver major
shit.
projects. Discussed.
Oh, thanks, Martin. Well, you can manage a lot on Excel, and a lot of the times we don't really know, the data isn't stable, and we're not sure or not clear on what we need. So, Excel is quite malleable. It has things like Power Query. You can do dashboards in it. Everyone has a basic understanding of how Excel used, so you can easily deploy it. If you need to change anything before you have to submit it to the client, you can quickly do it just before. And what else? And oh, it's hard, man. I hate Excel. It's not expensive. It's very inexpensive and won't cost your team a lot.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
That was painful.
I can feel the pain there.
Yeah, grinding.
It's good fun though to take guests through that. I mean, I always have a good chuckle. Especially we've had a few guests that just went, "Screw this! I can't defend that," and just went the opposite.
Well, it's great to have a different perspective on something you don't like. I think it helps uncover the reasons why you don't like something, perhaps, and have you really thought about it? And then you articulate the problem statement. Well, what is really wrong with Excel or working at NASA? And
I think it goes back to what you said at the start of the episode. People skills are so important. Just having the ability to be humble, to laugh at yourself at times. It's just something that really keeps you sane. It keeps people engaged, and we've said it many times. People will do more for people that they like and people that they feel are humble, respectful. So having something silly like that, having the ability
100%.
to laugh at yourself can really go a long way in the industry.
I've got a saying for that. Let's see if I don't screw it up. It's something like people don't care what you know until they know that you care, or something like that. And that's the element of project management. In fact, that's what I subscribe to when I work in projects, is that I want to care about people first, and then once they know I care, they're willing to work with me and understand my point of view, and the whole process is a lot easier. But yeah, well said, Martin. Well said.
Yeah, agreed. You know what? So I was just thinking as well, Martin, you did appear in season 1 with Mr. Craig Patterson when you were a guest, but you never got to go through tenor. So I'm going to take you through tenor. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Quick Q&A. What's your morning routine?
Get up, make coffee, switch the laptop on.
People or technology?
People. I know you don't believe me on that, but it really is.
You hesitated.
Yeah, I don't believe you. I think your internet actually cut out when you said it as well. It didn't believe you either.
Yeah, the glitch in the matrix right there.
This is a new one. I think you've put this in. What is the most
That's,
important? Time, cost, or quality?
quality. It's how you win more work.
What's the best book you've been gifted?
Ooh, tough one. I really like just it's a bit cliche, but I'm going to say the How to Win Friends and Influence People. It is a brilliant book, and I'm talking about the 1930s based book. Don't read the modern one.
Yeah, the Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, I know I'd come across as quite cliche when I say that, but it is such an amazing book. I couldn't recommend it more.
Have you read it?
Question
Question 5.
What I used to have to put up with.
Question 5. If you could choose to spend a day with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
I'm going to say Napoleon. He's one of the most fascinating characters in human history. You know, if you want to learn about leadership, he's got everything. Really, a very flawed character, but someone who is deeply fascinating.
Yeah, I think all of us have very flawed characters. I'm talking about present company. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Just work hard at what you do, and listen to the people around you. I was fortunate in my career where I had a lot of good people around me when I moved into project control. So whilst I'm sat there saying nothing for quite large periods of time, I know that trait carries on most of my life, but you learn and you gain that learning. You kind of learn through osmosis, and then you start to contribute to these conversations. You start to chip in, and then when you, in a few years time, maybe when you start at a new company, you can actually, oh yeah, I do know what I'm talking about, or yeah, I can contribute to this. So listen to the people around you, always seek out advice, and always ask questions.
Nice. Biggest mistake you've made on a project?
Be careful.
I put an extra 0 a project report that went to a customer, so had a very angry project director at the end.
Those zeros do count.
They do.
Other than Project Chatter, what's your favorite podcast?
It's the High Performance Podcast. Really interesting. It's by Jake Humphrey and a psychologist called Damien Hughes. They have a really good range of guests. Again, can recommend it more.
Nice. Other than your own profession, what would you like to have attempted?
I really would have loved to have been a sports journalist, but I'm pretty crap at writing, so probably wouldn't go far. But I'd have loved to have tried that.
Fair enough. And we know you're a die-hard football fan, so there we go. And the favorite one, I think, if you had to spend £1 million in a day, what would it be on?
Counting it, probably. Yeah.
And we're not adding an extra 0 to that, Martin.
Shame. Yeah, I probably would just count it because I'm quite sad and I like numbers and money.
Fair enough. Thanks, Martin. Now you've had your chance on tenor.
Good work.
So, yeah. Staying with you, Martin. Final thoughts of season 3 or just anything, going into season 4?
Again, we touched on it earlier. It's the real range of guests. I'm not going to say diversity. I'm going to say range and variety of guests and topics that we've had. It's been fascinating. There's things that I know absolutely nothing about before. So fusion skills, why scheduling innovation, some of these things that where we may have heard it, we may have seen some of the buzzwords around it, adaptive project management. We've seen the buzzwords, but having listened to the guests, I now know a lot more than I did an hour previously, having listened to it. So the range of guests and the passion that they show, there's no episode that I could think of where, I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't feel they were into it. So yeah, having that and then bringing some more applied learning. So like we had with the Crossrail episode, this was a real life example, and Rich was really good at defending some of the things. It is quite a big bad news story in the media, but he passionately defended all the processes that they went through. So things like that, really, just applying the concepts on major projects. How did they do? What did we learn from it? And how can we react in the future? And then the next stage is how do we attract new people into the industry? So yeah, that would be it for me.
No, that's a great reflection. And yeah, I think you're right. And this podcast is not designed that everyone agrees with everyone. That's not the point of this podcast. The point of this podcast is so that you're informed. So whether you agree with a topic or someone's view or a guest and I know a lot of people disagree with Val and I, so that's fine. Um, at least you're informed, right? You can make an informed decision rather than, as you say, just seeing a buzzword and going, "Oh, what the hell does that mean?" So yeah, absolutely agree with what you're saying. Val, final thoughts?
No, look, it's been a great ride. I think we kind of capped my feelings in season 3 before, but I kind of go back to the adage we kind of subscribe to as well, which is the fail fast, fail forward, fail often type methodology, which is like season 1 was great, season 2 got better, season 3 was fantastic. I think season 4 is really going to be something for the listeners and the viewers that will probably appeal to some of the things that Martin was talking about. You know, practical application. Okay, we've heard the theory. Now, give us some examples where that's really, really worked. And I think even from you and I perspective, Dale, I think we're going to get a little bit tougher. Maybe the questions are going to be a little bit harder. Maybe the subject matter is going to be a little bit more pointy. And we're going to say, well, we don't want correlation now, we want causation. Why did that work? Where did it work? Show me proof of evidence. And the burden of proof is something that we really need to get to. And maybe we've just been warming ourselves up, but I'd love to see more of that and love to hear from more guests in that space that can provide the listeners evidence, because after all, project management is meant to be a science, not an art. And you kind of balance the board. I mean, a lot of people think it's the other way around, right? And it is from a people perspective. Like, you can't necessarily do everything so robotic, although Martin does try. It's more about, and I'm a bit the same, right? A bit more mechanical, but it it has to be derived from best practice, and I think that's what we're trying to uncover. Like, if we're trying to be informative, I mean, after all, our slogan is raw, informal, informative. We are being informative. We need to be fact finders as well, and question ourselves. I think that's part of the bit that I said at the start is we are idiots. You know, we're kind of just trying to figure these things out and ask these silly questions that maybe other people don't have to, and that then resonates with our listeners, because they're like, I had the same question, I just didn't have the right person to ask, perhaps. And Martin's been blessed. You know, he's had some great, I'd say, for some fantastic managers over the last few years, and he's had a really good flight path into consulting, and I think he's going to be fantastic in that space, because like you're finding now, Martin, you do know a lot and you can speak up, and you have really valuable opinions and experiences that are fact based, that you can say, well, this is result orientated because I've done it and I've tried it and it's tested. And I think that'd be really, really valuable for the listeners in the future.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely agree with you, Val. So, folks, this is all the time we have for this particular episode, but we're not going to take a break between seasons. We'll be back next week with a brand new season episode. What will be on, Val? 76, episode 76, the first episode of season 4. It's going to be a huge big bang one. It's back on 4D modeling, BIM, etc. So look forward to that one, folks. But go back, have a listen to a lot of the episodes we've mentioned on this podcast. Support our charities, access blogs, or as Val said, if you think you have something interesting to share, visit us at projectchatterpodcast.com. Visit our Anchor page and send us a voice message. Again, you could have your questions or insights shared on one of our podcasts, so please do send that in. We'll start putting the link for that in as well. And don't forget to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and your favorite podcast player so you don't miss the next one. I guess all that's left to say is thank you for listening. It's been an amazing journey. We've been so privileged. I don't know how you listen to myself, Val, and Martin every week, but thank you for listening to our voices. Until next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me, Val, and Martin, it's bye for now.
Thank you.